We can't hear you, Ro, so you need to do whatever it is.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to A Book and a Beverage. We are here with not one, but two guests tonight. We have Constance, who's known as Atore, if you've read her books, and if you haven't, why haven't you? And then we have the wonderful Joel Glover, who is on this show because he reminded me that he's supposed to be on the show, and it's not that I forgot at all. That would never happen. And I have to say a special shout out to Joel because it is midnight. It is actually Wednesday where he's at, and he's still on our show. He's staying up late to be on here, so he clearly thought he was on Beard of Darkness or Bearded Book Beast or something, but there are no beards here. So thank you, Joel. Thank you, Constance.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, Ro, can we hear you? Nope, we cannot hear you. Well, that's a plus. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
It means you get to ask all the questions, Mike.
Oh, no, you don't want that.
Still can't hear you.
No.
Hi, Bo.
When we first started, I was echoing, and now we can't hear Ro. Technology. So anyway, let's talk about books because we'll go off the rails fast. So, Constance, tell us about your books before we forget.
So I currently have a queer love story out with another protagonist called So Taming the Serpent. And I probably should have, grabbed it and showed it, but unfortunately, I didn't think of that ahead of time. But that is a story that came out actually as of tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of it. I also have a short story sci-fi about giant space mermaids out. And I have a short novella out that's part of my newsletter. And I have an online serial that's currently on break. But that's what I have at the moment going on. And I'm working on a few other things. Too many other things.
And Joel, I know you're just I write one thing at a time and I don't have multiple projects in any way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's right. Peek behind the curtain there. So I'll run you through what I've got. I actually do have, he says, dipping his head, I actually do have physical copies, right?
Ooh.
So I have got technically a novel, but most people call it a novella, The Path of Pain and Ruin, which was the first book I published. It's about 15 months old now, and it is thematically it's about post-traumatic stress and about the experience of veterans coming home from the Iraq and Afghanistan war and sort of damage that's caused to them and the social structure. But of course, it's actually a grimdark book about a wounded veteran who has got sorceress powers. I thought it was pretty much straight up and down fantasy, fine. I've been told by 3 separate people that it was too violent for them to finish. So apparently it's pretty violent. I don't have a good read on this, and I'll mention that again later. Right now, the book is told in this kind of like tumbling sequential sequence, which sounds like a really ambitious way to write a first book, but it's basically just the consequence of the fact that my brain is like a washing machine full of squirrels. But there is a character that appears in the course of this, and like actually I'd say there's a character who appears who abruptly dies, but frankly that is most of the characters in the book. So I was talking to someone and they were like, oh, there was this one character and they only appear for like 4 lines and then they immediately die. I thought it was a really interesting idea, and then you just like murdered them. And I was like, oh yeah, I should probably write a short story about them. Love writing short stories. So I wrote a short story about that character and then accidentally wrote another 40,000 word book called Paths to Empire's End, which is because of the topsy-turvy way that Path of Pain and Ruin is told, is simultaneously a prequel, a sequel, and a side novel to the book. Again, moderately violent, although actually probably less violent than Path of Pain and Ruin. But I mean, if you pick up a book that's called Path of Pain and Ruin, on which there's a skull covered in blood on the front, and you're surprised that it's violent, really, frankly, you only have yourself to blame for your low levels of media literacy. I then have my baby. This was supposed to be my self-published fantasy blog off entrant, The 13th Prince, which I pitched to people as a cross between The Black Company meets Suits and The Big Short. So it's a sort of low fantasy novel with epic stakes that is partly about financial crimes, because I think there's not enough financial crime in fantasy, and I think financial crime is really interesting. But I got raffled out, so it's now just sort of sitting there, just gradually building momentum. Anybody that's looking at the video will see I've got a book in the bottom corner called A Many-Winged Retreat, which is a novelette. It's Swords and Sorcery. Wrote it by accident because that's how I do. Go, Ro.
Can't hear you.
So, I have two hands. I'm just guessing from his hand gestures. Like, do you have two hands? No. 2 ears? Don't know. Mike, how long do I have to pause before I just keep going at super speed?
Just keep going.
Good, cool. All right. And then I've got 6 kids' books, which are available in e-form. 3 are in audiobook. The other 3 will come out in audiobook as soon as I finish narrating the third, which are also available in 2 beautiful paperbacks. One is called... No, I cannot get that on the camera. One is called The Littlest Kingdom. They're fantasy books about a kingdom that is the Littlest Kingdom. And the second one, because this is the way you title a sequel, people, is called Return of the Littlest Kingdom. If I write a third one, I shall do some other Star Wars or geekery nod. But if as you see the sort of colours and the depictions, the characters are really cute. I did not draw them. A guy called Andy Carroll drew them, and they're amazing. But the colour schemes on the pages are like super deliberately chosen. And so, because the stories are about diversity and like thematically around diversity and inclusion and positive parenting. So, for instance, the Princess and the Yellow Boy, which is one of the new ones, is also about liver transplant, and so the colours are based on the colour scheme for the Children's Liver Disease Foundation in the UK, which is the charity that supports liver disease. So there's like a little Easter eggy thing in there for you all that you can look at the covers and try and work out what thematically they're about by the colour scheme bands. Ro raised his hand again, like we're in primary school, and we're now going to see if he can talk. Go!
No.
No.
Cannot hear you. But Joel, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
You said that you have a problem with, your books, that you didn't realize it was so dark and so many people were killed. And you also write children's book. I see a potential problem here. How many murders are there in your children's books?
See, no murders in the children's books.
Okay. Woo. Okay, good.
But as we were saying, so I've got projects on the go. I'm currently writing a middle grade book, which I'm actually, because I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, I'm pretty confident is a middle grade book. And like it's there is a bit of violence, but it's not too violent. It's very what we would call in the UK like PG. It's like it's aimed at those kids. And so like the humor and the themes in my books, a lot of them are about that. There are still themes in all the books about love and inclusion and family. And there's also a lot of humor in them. That runs from the books for 4-year-olds to the books that 40-year-olds tell me they can't read. And then we'll obviously include in the middle grade book. But I'm also working on a young adult book, and my alpha reader read the first 2 chapters and said, Joel, do you have any idea how frightening this is? And I was like, no. So it remains a problem. It does remain a problem for me that I'm not the best judge of those sorts of things.
I think that book should probably come out in October for spooky season, because it sounds like it's going to be a horror.
Yeah.
But Constance, we don't want to forget about you. So you have 2 books out. What are you currently writing?
So I'm currently, so as I mentioned earlier, but I'm currently taking a break because last month I finished the first book of a sci-fi dystopian duology. And I sent it off to beta readers, and I should be getting the feedback actually next week. And I take it, bro, decided to try the trick, turn it off and back on again. But yeah, so I'm currently working on a sci-fi one. I plan on getting back into it as soon as I start getting back the feedback, because I actually have a draft of the second book already ready. But I wanted to take... long story short, I originally wrote it as a single book, and then at the beginning of this year, I wanted to split it and turn it into a duology. So before I get the next draft to a stage where I'm comfortable giving it to beta readers, I want to see what the feedback is from the first book so that I can implemented into this one, hopefully shorten the time period between beta edits and the final version. But yeah, it's a sci-fi dystopian post-apocalyptic story with AIs and bodily autonomy and organized religion as the main antagonist. So it's going to be a little bit heavier than what I usually write, but it's something that's been on my, it's been in my head for years and years now, and I finally decided to try and get it out.
So have either one of you entered a book into Spiffbo or Spacebo?
So I actually entered the one that I mentioned earlier, Soul Taming the Serpent. I entered it, and it was literally the first book cut.
Hey, that was me last year. Congratulations.
I was in so it was there was the first set of reviews that came out. There was 6 books, and all 6 of them ended up getting cut, and I was part of those ones. And I have to admit, I was a little bit salty at first, but at the end of the day, I know that what I write, first of all, every book, it's not for everybody. And I guess I just didn't find my judge with Spitball this year, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm still happy it got in. I also entered it into I always forget the acronym,
NYA.
I always want to say YNA. I don't know why. But yeah, I also entered it, and it also got cut from that one too. So, but the reviews I do have are nice, which I'm taking it basically depends on the readers, right?
Exactly. Ro, I think we can hear you now.
Can you?
Yeah.
You can.
Hey, how about that? All it took was
everyone's
stopping
happy.
everything. And everybody in the chat is like, oh, shit. Oh, no.
Glad to have you, Ro.
It was the chat that was saying that, not me.
So, having watched this program now for the last 12 minutes, I have a couple of questions for hold on. For you, Constance, is that a background or is that the actual wallpaper of your house?
That's the actual wallpaper, like it's hand painted up.
That's cool as hell.
I was bored during the first summer of just everything being shut down.
All right. Well, that was a good use of your time.
Thanks.
And Joel, you said twice that you accidentally wrote a book.
Yes.
And you can accidentally step in dog poop. I've heard people say they accidentally got pregnant, but I have never heard someone say they accidentally wrote a book. The hell is that about?
Well, so like with Empire's End, what happened was I wrote a 630-word short story about, and like as I say, someone said to me, "Oh yeah, this character was interesting. I wish I knew more about them," and they were like effectively like a 2-sentence throwaway murder. So I wrote 630 more words about them. And again, still ended with their murder, right? Just flip the perspective around, flip the POV around, wrote it. And then I was like, in Path of Pain and Ruin, the protagonist is a former member of a sort of religious monastic order that are gifted with angelic superpowers, effectively. They're referred to as the 100. It is never entirely clear whether there ever were 100 of them or like what their purpose was, but they don't all show up in like the single POV that book shows. So I was like, oh, I've got space to write some more short stories here that I can use as sort of just skill sharpening. I can work on different sort of POV styles. I can work on telling different types of stories in the same world, and then I can use them to promote the book. And then I accidentally wrote like stories of various lengths that started to be able to be scaffolded together into a coherent narrative arc where I found within those short stories a broader story that I wanted to tell in the same setting. And then it happened again.
When I was first in the service, a guy that I worked with would write these 15-page long letters on an old manual typewriter to his dad. And he would wake up and say he didn't remember doing it, but that was because he drunk like a case of beer. Okay? So that's kind of writing on accident.
Yeah, I suppose so. But like I meant to write a short story, and I succeeded in that goal.
Okay.
And then I had an idea to write another short story, and I succeeded in that goal. And then on 2 occasions, that has turned into, 3 occasions actually, because we haven't talked about the fact. I finished one over August that was supposed to be a short story collection, and then I got some really great feedback. I was submitting the short stories to the sorts of places that you would submit fantasy short stories to, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, those sorts of places, and people were coming back. They were getting rejected, but with really nice feedback that were like, this is well written, and the buts were often, we were left wanting more. And so I had that in my head, which, Constance, it's better than nothing, right? And then Seong, who's the editor at Grendel Press, which is an indie press for dark fantasy, I sent her the collection, and she said the problem with this is it's 35,000 words, so it's novella length, very hard to sell. And it's short stories, very hard to sell. So you've managed to hit the combination of very hard to sell pairing. Like, basically, if you want to do something with this with an indie press, you're going to need to think about effectively doubling the length of it.
Did you tell them that you did it accidentally, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm quite open about that. So I sat down and I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting feedback. And I sort of smashed the 2 pieces of feedback together, took 12,000 words out of the 36,000 words, and added in enough to get me back to 60,000 by accident. I hadn't planned on it. It just sort of happened.
Those are the best accidents to happen when you
Just
start
sort
off
of
with,
happen.
and it just keeps going.
Yeah, I love that.
So
Just
we
happens.
had one author on here who told us the horror story of she wrote 5 books, and she's going to publish 1 book every month for 5 months straight. And she published book 1, and she published book 2, and she went to publish book 3, and the file was corrupted. So she went to her backup, and the file was corrupted. So she went to her Google Drive, and the file was corrupted. So she had to rewrite book 3. Now that's an accident. I wrote a book twice on accident. I mean,
3 times. 3 times.
Yeah, I realised it's 3. Yeah.
It's not an accident. What's the whole thing saying? Once it's an accident, twice it's a coincidence, 3 times a pattern. Not an accident.
Yeah.
Right.
3 times
That would be like you Constance, saying, I painted this wall by accident. I meant to do it in like a peach.
Yeah, no, I recognise, I recognise I am my own worst enemy in some ways. But as I say, I thought I was writing a young adult horror thing, like paranormal horror thing about, the universality of the experience of working class femininity, and it turns out I have not done that.
That is the smartest sentence we have ever had anyone utter on this show, by the way.
I'll take that. Yeah, it's not on I come back to the washing machine full of squirrels thing. I'm not the most predictable cat in the world because I don't have any control over large chunks of my brain. They just do it once. But I want to hear more about the mermaids. I want to hear more about Constance's space mermaids, because I heard the word space mermaids and I was like, I've never heard those words in that combination before, but I'm in.
We bypassed that somehow. I don't know how. Yeah. So Constance,
because I got here late and I'm trying to catch up.
About myself, but I'm also very interested in hearing about the words space mermaids.
Well, okay. It's a short story. It is about 1KU. But basically, I had this idea. Actually, funnily enough, it was Clark's Magazine had a contest happening for a cover for one of their issues. This was maybe about a year or 2 years ago, probably. They had a contest happening for their cover for their next issue. And I really, really wanted to draw something sci-fi-ish, but at the same time as well as in my style. And then I suddenly got it in my head, okay, but what if it was like a mermaid, but in space, like mermaid style, but in space. So I ended up basically drawing it in an entire night. Like I spent the whole night figuring that out. And when I was done, I was like, I'm not done. I don't want it to be done. So I'm like, I need to give a story behind this picture that I drew. So I wrote this story. It's called The Starcatcher. It is about Atore, who is the space mermaid in question. And the race, they're not called space mermaids. That's just how I market it because it grabs people's attention, right? The races, they're called Stella. And the entire job of this species is to keep the universe going because they take care of the stars. They help it when stars are born. They help it when it's the stars, when it's time for their end. And they have different types of jobs, but one of the most important jobs is called the star catcher. And Itria, all of her existence, which we never actually know how long it is, because again, like cosmic terms, that's all she's wanted to be. She's always wanted to be a star catcher. However, she is born with a deformity. And the short story is about her fighting the odds, because everybody in her race basically tells her, like, no, she can't do this. Like, she cannot be a star catcher. This is the hardest job. She has a deformity. She has technically a broken tail. And her job is to basically make everybody believe that she can do it, and she succeeds. And how the short story is about how she changes people's, the other Stellas, how she changes their perception of what it means to still fight and still have opportunity to still be able to be the best at something, even if you're not physically up to snuff as the rest of your species or your race. So yeah, and when I say they are giant, because they are giant space mermaids, I'm saying, like, if this was the sun, this is how big the mermaid would be. So, like, they're huge space mermaids.
You saying that to me, I think about like native tribes and stuff, and their depiction of various gods. That would be a great kind of god for a native tribe, right? That just the whole idea of that to me is kind of wonderful.
That I've never even thought about it that way, but when you say it now, like, I'm like, okay, I can see this, because like, I
Yeah,
like the idea of connecting it to other stories. So here we go. That's one way
right.
to
You
connect
you
it.
absolutely could.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're going to accidentally write a book.
Well, it's not gonna be Joel style accident, that's for sure, but I can try. Well, if I try, it won't be an accident. So
Well, draw more pictures, and then you'll need to write more stories.
usually I try and go in reverse in that, write the story, draw the picture that goes with the story afterwards. But sometimes it just works out better, like, because sometimes I just want to draw something to, relax, get the mind off of, all sorts of stuff. And that's how the Starcatcher was born, basically.
Nice.
I think if there's a talent that a lot of writers would like to have, it would be the ability to draw what they see in their head. That is just such a great combination.
Yep.
It's hard because, like, I can't always do it. I'm not formally trained artist. Like, I mean, so the thing that you see behind me, like, this is the style that I usually draw in, because to me that's something that relaxes me. I don't even know if that's called a style or something like that. But I basically have like zero budget to hire artists, and I decided, hey, let me try and like get my hand into digital arting. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it works amazing. Like, I got, so that sci-fi story that I was telling you about earlier, the duology, I was able to get like these awesome, in my opinion, awesome character art pictures out. Like, for the main characters, I was able to do some really awesome ones for them. But when I tried to draw the cover, what I wanted the cover to be, I hated it. Absolutely. So like it's, I know what I want to get it out, but I don't have the skill to it. So at that point, like, I will be hiring an artist for what I can't do.
Yeah. So I probably missed this at the beginning. Where are you both calling from?
I'm in Canada,
Whereabouts?
near Toronto, actually.
Okay. And
Yeah,
Joel?
and I'm in Hartford, which is just outside of London, in the UK.
All right. Okay.
Thanks, Dave, for the comment.
If somebody wanted to do what Dave doing and see that, Constance, where would they go? What's your site? I'll just pop it up here.
Oh, I have a free one, so the URL is kind of weird. Hold on. Like, let me see if I can drop it in the other chat for you.
So Joel, were you in the services?
No.
Okay. Do you just know people who were, or is this just an area of
Yeah.
interest for you?
Yeah, no. So I think it's the. So I know a few people who have been, but for me, there's been, but the misadventure if we want to call it that generously, in Iraq and Afghanistan, like the catastrophe that has been, I think has had these really profound and under-examined effects on British society and on American society around. There's been a huge upswing. And I'm sure there are charities like this in the States, but we have one in the UK called Help for Heroes, and the goals of the charity are super laudable. It's about making sure that people that come back from serving abroad have the appropriate access to sort of physical recuperation, mental health support, all of those sorts of things. And this is in a country, with a more substantially socialized social safety net than a lot of places might have. But at the same point, you look and you think, okay, but as a society, we chose to, and our elected officials chose to send people into harm's way and into danger. Why are we dependent on charitable giving to make sure that people have appropriate access to, the mental health care that they need when they come home? I've a couple of family members that have really, really struggled with it, and you just think, so for me, it's almost like the reaction to that. It's the there is certainly in Path of Pain and Ruin, there's this religious connotation to it. I have family members who are very almost like Calvinist, and I don't think they think of themselves in that term, but this conviction that everything happens for a very prescribed reason, and you can't really budge off it. So having someone having a principal character who has had awful experiences throughout their life and is extremely traumatized by this experience of combat that they never sought out, has been forced on them, and all these other horrible experiences, but then subsequently embraces a religion which is doctrinaire about the fact that everything you do is for a reason, and basically it's being foreseen. So you're just to accept it and move forward. How does those ideas about fate and destiny play into sort of a recurrence of trauma and of nightmare? So I basically started with the way that I start all my projects is I write the first paragraph or the first page, and then it sits and stews, and then at some point, and I've got 11 pages of first paragraphs and at least 11 pages of first paragraphs and first pages, and then I pick it up when I realise what the themes that I want to write about that attach to that initial bang are. And so I basically realised that was that was the theme that I wanted to talk about in the sort of current political environment. The other impetus for it, though, which is not so trendy, because it took me a long time to write my first one. I'm much more productive now because I've worked out how it works for me. I was working a lot on flu pandemic preparedness, which is such a back in the day when I was working in British health policy in the UK, we were really worried about flu. Turns out we were worried about completely the wrong fucking thing, right? But we were really we worried about flu, and we were thinking about all these things that we might do around flu pandemic preparedness. And it was sort of immediately post swine flu, and we're thinking about that. So there is an aspect of bio warfare and pandemic in the book that is really influenced by that. And then I finished writing the book during COVID. So there's lots of little sort of strands and strings that go through it, even though it's 40,000 words, so it's very short and sharp. There's quite a lot. It's quite dense, I think.
But you put a lot of thought into that. I mean, I'm going to go out of my way and speak for Mike too, and I might be wrong, but I don't think we put nearly that much thought into an entire book that you put into, because you're talking about themes and stuff like that, shit that our English teachers used to say to us, what is the theme of this book, and why did the author write this? Well, maybe he just didn't have anything better to do, No, but for you, they would have an actual answer. It's he was thinking deep thoughts,
Themes can be very important, though, in regards to how they are picked up by the readers. Because obviously coming into it as an author, coming into something and writing based off of a theme, that doesn't mean it's going to translate the exact same way to every reader. So it's a little, I don't know, I like the idea that you base so much off of, because usually when I write, I try to follow a theme, and then it ends up going off completely off script.
Right.
And usually by the end of it, I have a new theme in mind, but
yeah. So definitely every book that I write has a very strong. It will have very strong, like a very strong thematic core and whole to it that runs through it, without which the whole thing would fall apart. And like the characters, the attendant or supporting characters in it will either be playing roles to illuminate that theme, or will be carrying sort of A plot or bit like B plot or C plot themes along with it. So, I mean, and EL's not wrong. You know, there is quite a lot of violence in particularly in there's quite a lot of violence in a lot of the books. But like, so for instance, 13th Prince, as I say, like, so 13th Prince starts with two very low-level bureaucrats arguing about something that is going on in the empire in which they live. And the book is about imperial violence, and it is about it's like they believe in the purpose of their empire, but that is not to say that I believe in the purpose of empire, because I think it is possible for characters to have different opinions to the authors. I think like if they're just there as like my voice piece, then you're not really writing fiction at that point. But they have very clear, very thoroughly thought out reasons for what they're doing that fit into their own political and personal like worldviews. But at the same point, their whole goal in the book is to stop the empire doing a war that they think will be a catastrophe for the empire. But they're not doing it because they're like, oh well, the people outside the empire are like, they don't necessarily. It's not that they're neither humanizing them nor dehumanizing them. They're purely thinking about it from their perspective, which is very autistically coded people that only think about money. And they're like, this is going to cost a lot of money, and at the end of it, there's going to be a lot of dead people and no money. So that's there. But then there are also these themes about finding family, about finding place, about finding purpose. I mean, I know this might strike some people as a bit strange. I am an accountant by training, and I have done a lot of stuff in my career around fraud and crime and those sorts of things. So there are some very carefully constructed financial artifices which they use to fund. Basically, they enter into a massive financial criminal enterprise in order to twist the empire around. But that financial crime is not separate from the violence of imperialism. So, you know, if you want a very leftist critique of modern fascist capitalism, it is in there. It is in there quite deliberately, but also there's quite a lot of jokes. So, you know, I'm hoping it sort of balances out.
So I got two things I got to say. First, yeah. Joel, you are the fourth accountant that we've interviewed. Who knew that so many accountants were also authors of, you know, fantasy? And two, Ro, I am very much a deep thinker, and I'd like to call your attention to my first spirit animal, which has arrived.
All I see is like your finger, man.
Well, it's below Oscar the Grouch. My first spirit animal is here, so excellent. I have more coming. So that is, you know, I don't do themes, but I identify with him, so I felt I should probably buy the Grinch too. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I like green. But anyway, take it away, Ro. We can hear you now. So, you know.
That's a nice segue. Thanks. I missed the first 10 minutes of this, so I don't know what's been asked, right? So as far as, you know, what book are you on and all that kind of thing. So what I'm going to let y'all do is each in turn pitch whatever you're working on next, or whatever's out there, or whatever's coming up out there, and go ahead and tell us a little bit about it and when we can expect it.
Go ahead, Joe.
Everybody's dying to get in.
So the next thing you will see from me is one of two projects, and I'm confident in this because they're both finished. One is a romantasy. It remains a little violent. One is a romantasy.
Where dark romantasy, okay, middle ground, right?
It's a cozy romance that takes place in a coroner's office / you know.
So it's set in the same world as Path of Pain and Ruin and Path to Empire's End. It's set like hundreds of years after, and is a girl meets boy thing. It is
Girl kills boy. It's
no,
okay.
it's in some ways it's very sweet, but basically when I didn't know anything about self-publishing, right? And I self-published Path of Pain and Ruin, and then I found out that romantasy was a thing, and I was being bombarded by these trope boards in my social media, trope board, right? And a lot of the and it's like, oh, this is fantasy, and I was like, oh, fucking hell, I can't deal with this. Like some of this stuff, I just can't understand how anybody would write with a straight face and with any kind of I just don't get it. But I was like, but people are buying this. Could I write anything like this? And how many murders in the romantasy? More than you might like. But I worked out like 5 that I could fit together that would actually fit within the types of story that I wanted to tell. And I thought I'll give it a swing, see what happens. And it actually came out pretty quickly. It was like 4 months start to finish, with that being the main focus. So it's called It's currently called They Who Receive, and it's a sort of sheltered, closeted princess, and the romance proceeds from there. And then the other one is called 9 Realms of Reality, which is a book that I wrote, which is one of the books I wrote by accident, which, if you give me a moment, I'll give you the pitch for, because I'm really pleased with it. Hang on, it is here.
So your romantasy is basically The Bachelorette, except for she gives daggers out to the people who don't make it instead of roses.
No, she's really sweet. She's really sweet. They're both very sweet kids in a very harsh world.
They're kids. How old are they? Because your book sounds NC-17.
I'm older. Yeah, no, they're like your classic romantasy protagonists. They're like 18 to 22. First blush of young love. They're sweet. They're sweet kids. Where is that gone? Hang on, bear with me. There it is. It's in the drafting section. Of course it is. And yeah, so 9 Realms of Reality. The pitch is unreliable wizards, chaotic lesbian witches, sibling rivalry, bisexual bounty hunters, fraternal love, monsters, magic, and undead dinosaurs.
That's an awful lot on one menu.
Yeah. I tell you what, it is a menagerie, and in terms of actually,
and how many words is this book?
60,000.
It's
punchy. I'm really pleased with it. It's punchy, but yeah, there's there are some deaths, but like,
yeah, fool's gonna die.
Yeah, See, Tim, there we go. See, now I just need 30 more thousand Tims, and I'm G to G.
There you go.
If you just threw some lizards in there, I mean, he would be like
all over it,
down, demanding it.
Yeah, no lizards. I mean, although I guess, that depends on how you feel about dinosaurs as to whether lizards are dinosaurs. But yeah, it's got like that's like the short list. It's got man-eating birds. It's got like giant carnivorous ants in it, like sentient ants. It's got cockatrice that is like a bounty hunter, like the bounty hunter's pimp, basically. Monsters that I made up. One's called Tesh Tesh. She's really sweet.
I think your version of really sweet and my version of really sweet are probably 2 very different things.
Oh no,
I would throw on that one, because yeah, it sounds.
Yeah. So hang on, let me just bring up, because I've got my file open now. So,
but man, I want to hang out with you on November 5th.
Yeah, so Tesh Tesh is Terror of Flesh, sort of a horrible griffin thing, but also a very good mother. And that's where she gets the sweetness from. She's like a really protective mother, but just because she's horrible looking and eats people doesn't mean that she can't be good at other stuff.
It's like that old trope on TV shows, If the bad guy is a father, he can do horrible things because he loves his daughter. It's okay. You killed John Wick's dog. 72 of you are going to die this episode.
Yeah, and that's justified. So, like I might mention, like there's a lot of it's like throwaway, like there's often throwaway jokes and like weird little bits and pieces, right? And that this book came with like 2 pages of like jokes that came to me and then worked their way in. My favorite throwaway character, who was supposed to go in for like 1 sentence and appeared then a few more times, is a character called a hypothecarist.
Okay, hold on. Stop right there. Do you have the book with you?
Yeah, I've got it up somewhere. Yeah.
Read us a couple pages.
All right, hang on. 9 Realms of Reality. I need to get the. We want into the complete draft.
And Constance, you're not off the hook. We're still coming back to you.
Yeah. Find something you want to read too.
Let's.
Something to read to.
Well, he's looking for that. For anybody who was wondering, this is tonight's beverage of choice. It's a little sharpish, but I was starting to play a drinking game with myself every time anybody said accidentally, but it was getting out of hand.
So I'll read you a couple of pages. Shout when to stop. I'll read you a couple of pages from the second chapter of the book. The second chapter is called "Bound by Salt, Word, and Blood." As usual, Pella was alone on the beach. Her mother was somewhere nearby, but despite this, she was alone. She was in no danger, of course. The spirits of the sea had an uneasy accord with her mother. They could not be certain that the Volva of the Peaks in Shadow could drag them from the brine and scourge them with fire or iron, but they could also not be certain that she couldn't. They would float her back to the shoreline if she fell in, like a splinter of shipwrecked timber, safe being better than sorry, even for near immortal beings. She had plenty of ways to entertain herself. There were gulls to chase, her hooting voice mingling with theirs and rising up into the salty air. Crabs and other creatures could be dug up and toyed with, placed into tiny farms constructed of seaweed and pebbles, even encouraged to fight if she were in a more martial frame of mind. Winkles clung to the rocks, ready to be eaten if you had a nice sharp pin with which to pry them from their shells. And her imagination was as vibrant as that of any 4-year-old girl in any world, full of rainbows and explosions and totally lacking consequences and fear. She dug a trench. The art to making a lagoon in soft sand is to start much higher than the tide line with a deep pit. Once you have your ramparts, your mountains, your Sauron nests and temples to the forest gods in place, you can start to dig your trench, long and shallow, using the sand from your digging to make high walls. Some of those will crumble with time or brine, a lesson for every child to think about. You have to dig down, deeper than the waterline, so that once you pierce the surface, the sea will swell up your trench like blood in a wound. Things were going marvelously. Things were going marvelously until they weren't. A razor clamshell, cracked open by a gull or fish, caught the edge of Pella's heel and opened it quick as blinking.
Okay, hold on.
Give me 3 more lines because it'll.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
The sand was soft in a pile, but sharp when the small grains worked their way into the open wound, holding it open for the salt to follow. And she's got like when she swears, it's quite violent, and then bad things happen.
So that noise you just made
is on the page.
How do you spell that?
You write it in. You write in English. You write what you want. Then you translate it very badly into Lithuanian, and then you thump it through a text scrambler until it looks sufficiently ugly, and then you put it on the page.
Nice, Lithuanian. That's very specific.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, this is the thing, though, right? The theme.
So the sea is afraid of this 4-year-old.
Yes, everyone's afraid
Excellent.
of the 4-year-old.
Well, she's a 4-year-old who dreams of rainbows and explosions, so yeah, that's fair.
What's the name of this one? I didn't.
This one is called 9 Realms of Reality.
Okay. And hold on, sorry. Is this the YA one?
Oh no. YA one's much more frightening than this.
Because I'm like, I just want to get a scale, like, because again, I'm pretty sure we figured out that your suite is not the same as our suite. Definitely
No,
for
no.
me. That's why I just want to make sure this is the.
I mean, as I say, I've got a hypothecarist who's like a kobold goblin priest who, like, builds a literal moral compass which explodes when implanted if you do the wrong thing. Like, there's a lot of like.
Definitely not the middle grade one, is what you're saying.
No, definitely not the middle grade one. Middle grade one is. I mean, it's still violent, but like.
You went to an all-boys school, didn't you?
No. I spent enough time around women to know how awful they are. The amount of my characters, the amount of my leading characters that are women is often quite surprising.
Okay. Constance.
Yes.
What are you working on, or will you be working on?
So I mentioned the sci-fi one already. So that one I'm planning on getting back into that one in a week. My goal is next week to get back into it.
Okay.
It's always my goal. Yep. Next week.
Well, no, because I just finished. That's what I was saying earlier. Actually, I think that was when you weren't with us, Ro. But because I finished off the first book last month or the month before when I handed it off to beta readers. So I want to get the feedback, and feedback from beta readers should be coming in at the end of this week, next week. So I want to get that in before I start working on the next draft for the second book. But I also do have, like I mentioned it briefly as well, I do have an online serial, which is currently on break. I took a break for it because of the sci-fi. So the sci-fi stories 3v3 is the call. So I took a break from 3v3 to work on I took a break from the online serial to work on 3v3. And now I'm planning on getting back into 3v3 with the online serial on the side, slow paced. I'm not going to try and hurry it at all. And I just want to throw this in just because Joe said earlier when he was talking about romantasy, your typical, especially with the ages, I do want to throw in Soul Taming the Serpent, because that is a romantasy. However, I decided to mess with the common romantasy tropes, and my main character is 60. So including a love triangle with two other seniors. So I just want to, because like I get the whole trope, like, you know, with the 16 to 22 to 25 actually is even apparently considered old for romantasy, which ouch, hurts, but okay. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it even further. I'm gonna take it all the way up romantasy with a 60-year-old. Why not?
What do you do with all the extra skin?
It's clean.
Mike.
Actually, you know, I was literally just thinking about this the other day. I don't think I even actually have a kiss in this story. It is a love story, but I don't think there is even actually an on-page kiss.
So how many murders do you have?
Well, when they do kiss, one of their teeth comes out. So
it's off page again. We don't know. However you want to imagine it, but
I don't want to imagine it at all.
If we're talking about,
60.
I know.
If we're talking about named characters, only one murder happens.
Okay.
See, keeping it clean with that one as much as I can.
Joel's like, that's the blurb. It's only one murder. Damn.
Yeah, no, I think I needed that one, especially because the online serial that I have basically starts off with half of the world population being killed. So
you're balancing the scales. It's really interesting. So I also I've got an online serial that's being published at the moment. It's on a website called Foo for All. I would recommend you all to go and check it out. My series on there is called The Oral History of the Cavendish Mining Company, and it is a series of shorts. There are 22 in the bag. I think there's 5 already published, but I've written all 22. So like I'm confident that they will be published in order because I wrote the order and they're all written. But yeah, there's the thing that keeps coming up in mine in terms of sci-fi serial is industrial accidents. I don't know why, but
because you live in England.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Health and safety's gone mad here, but like, yeah, there are a disturbingly high number of industrial accidents in the series. Like, but it deliberately so because it's a deliberately unsafe workplace that they're working in, and there are reasons for that. You know, and then the same as, you know, Constance, like, yeah, well, you know, first you kill half the people, but that's one of the interesting things about science fiction, right? So fantasy, you can sort of you have like you can play with like quite a lot of what ifs, but when you're writing science fiction, it's almost like you can do like one or two things. You only have to do one or two what ifs to get it running along. So mine has like 3 what ifs and goes, and it's like discovery of an alien race, ongoing climate catastrophe, and monopoly capitalism. And you're like, okay, well, what happens if you combine those 3 things? And in my opinion, industrial accidents. Like all of the other nice,
at least.
Yeah, like I wrote a couple of solar punk stories that go really nicely into it. You know, really sort of like utopian, hopeful things. But unfortunately, to get to them, sometimes you have to wade through the industrial accidents and the cover-ups and the the black market economy that is also in the series.
So, sorry, Constance, and we will let you read your story. Joel, are you married and have kids?
Yeah.
What is a conversation like at your dinner table?
Accounting and industrial accidents.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it sort of varies. It depends. I try and keep my my interests away from the children because they're 9 and 10.
Okay.
You know.
So, I was just going to say, I have this urge now, and when I'm writing my book, just to go, Arthmile was murdered, and then go back to my story and just have someone die in like 3 words.
Yeah. You should.
Do it.
That's what side characters for. That's what they're just background. You can murder them at will. It's wonderful.
They don't even need names at that point.
No.
It's just numbers.
I write the short story about them later.
And for you,
get a name.
For you, Constance, you've sorted this out by killing half the people right up front. What's another couple of people?
Exactly.
Who would even know?
A rounding error at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about numbers at that point.
All right, we'll let you read a little bit from yours. Tell us what book it is.
So I'm actually going to read you a little bit from the online serial. So mine, I hosted actually on Royal Road, my own Substack, and 2 other places, but I'm kind of drawing a blank right now on the names. It's called God of Discovery. And it's a story basically about one specific god who he's known as the God of Discovery. And it's about how he kind of wants to avoid his duties as a god and basically just wants to run around and explore the world. But he discovers something is strange with the magic. So in this world, the gods live amongst the mortals, and they are the only ones who have access to magic. Nobody else has access to it, and they call it the Mahi. And he notices that something is off about that. He's starting to see magic being used by other than the gods, but none of the other gods believe him. So it's basically his job to figure it out. I'm currently on the 4th arc. I got stuck on the 4th arc. I need to get back into it, but I think I'm already at over 300,000 words for it.
Wow.
But my goal is minimum 1 million. Like I have 15 arcs planned, not fully planned out, but like ideas for 15 arcs.
And so this is on Substack, you say. So do people like pay you per episode or something?
No. I have it free. So I have it on Royal Road and I have it on Substack. I give it out for free. My goal is basically what I'm publishing now on these platforms it's not the final draft. It's the draft for me to just get it out and keep writing the story. And then once I finish all of it, so technically, if you transform it into books, it'll be about anywhere between 15 to 20 books. I'm still not 100% sure. I want to publish them all at once, and that's when it'll be hopefully money. Until then, it's just free for anybody to read type of thing.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And since we were talking about the beginnings, I was originally going to read a different part of it, but I decided, hey, I'm going to start with the beginning of this one. So you're going to see what ends up happening. And pardon me, but I'm not as familiar as Joe is in regards to reading. So sorry if I stumble. But thousands of years ago, the gods waged an epic war. The effects of it were visible in the mortal realm in the form of earthquakes, tsunamis, plagues, forest fires, and hurricanes. Civilizations fell, and the mortals were plunged into chaos. Even then, they still worshipped and prayed for help. Nobody knew what started the war, but everybody knew that it ended when the gods descended to the mortal realm. When they first arrived, they were treated with reverence and awe. They were given the finest clothes, the freshest foods, the most lavish homes, and the love of all. They had temples and statues built in their names, and so many stories that every generation grew up with knowledge of each of the hundreds of gods that now lived among them. Living beside their creators, the mortals thrived. At first, the mortals traveled across the world to only ask for the gods' blessings. Then they created pilgrimage and started asking for the gods' advice. Then they invited the gods to their homes and lavished them with gifts while asking for help. And then they demanded the Mahi, the source of all magic, the core of the gods, the one thing that raised them above humanity. The first three were easy to give, and each of the gods loved the mortals enough to always answer their prayers. The last was impossible to share. The mortals did not believe them. Neither did the Mahi. So that's all I'm going to share, because like I had that as a little epic blurb type of thing at the beginning of the story, and then it gets into the actual story.
No, I mean that's really nice, because it sets up everything you want it to set up in a very short, concise kind of thing. You know what this is going to be about going into it.
That was my goal with it. And though I have had a few comments in regards to, oh, it reads too much like a prologue, or it reads like, nobody's actually going to read this, it feels too out of the story. Considering the fact that my story is third person close, you only get, and if I remember correctly, actually the first arc only has that one character as a point of view. It's only the last chapter that you get introduced to a second point of view. So you only know the things that this one character does. And although he's a god, he doesn't know everything. Like when I talk about gods in this, I'm talking about in regards to think of like the Greek or the Egyptian pantheon, that style of gods. So they're not omnipotent, they're not all powerful, they're not like, they get hurt, they can get hurt, and they can actually, the original tagline I had, it is let me see if I can remember it properly, but just because they were never born did not mean they could never die, was my original tagline before I decided to focus it specifically on this one character. So yeah.
If both of you could, in the comment section, write down where people can find that. Somebody asked you to read more. You can read all of it for free, apparently. All million words.
Only 3.
Eventually.
I am aiming for 1 million. Currently if I remember correctly, I passed the 300,000 mark at the beginning of this year, before I took a break. So that one is a very long one. It's something that's very close to my heart. Like, I'm working on it slowly, steadily. It's something I've been wanting to tell for a very long time. And I love the idea of basically sharing a God's point of view, but not God like all powerful, capital G type of thing, So.
Have you seen on, I think it's on Netflix, Chaos with Jeff Goldblum? It's a new series that just came out.
I haven't heard of it, no. I don't really watch much TV.
Basically, you know who Jeff Goldblum is?
Yes,
Yeah,
because,
okay.
Just because you said that, I'm like, okay, I'm
right.
putting it in my
So,
memory bank to watch.
It's kind of like an alternate Earth weirdness, but he is Zeus, right? And there's a prophecy about the downfall of the gods. I haven't seen it all yet, but it's quite good. It's, if nobody else has seen that, you might want to check that out. I think it's on Netflix. It might be Amazon. I don't know. But
okay. Honestly, I love any type of story. And actually, that's one of the things that I try and do, like, to bring in that perspective. Like, I grew up on a lot of those myths, and especially like for me, because I'm from Bulgaria, which for anybody that doesn't know is borders Greece. A lot of Greek myths, their historical locations are actually in Bulgaria. So I grew up on Greek mythology. I grew up on Egyptian mythology. I got into Norse mythology. I love the entire aspect of humanizing powerful beings like that. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do my version of it, basically.
Yeah.
It's nice if you can make a version that's kind of new,
That was my biggest goal. And one of the things as well is my magic system. A lot of people have made a comment on it that it's unique for them. Is my entire magic system is scent based. So each of the gods, their magic is represented by a scent, and because none of them have the same type of magic, all of them are represented by a different and unique scent type of thing. So I decided to try and make it a little bit original. I have no idea how much I've succeeded, but so far comments are good.
The god of mischief is represented by Axe body spray, something like that.
Okay.
I guess there'd be links for Joel. Sorry.
Well, no, for example, so the main character, his name is Darjan. His scent is of the ocean. And so I have some gods whose scent is it's something like that. Like I have one whose scent is lavender. I have one who's like roses past their bloom, almond oil cooking. Like I have some of them scents like that, but I also have some that are, when you smell something but you can't describe it. So I have one, the queen of all the gods, the one considered one of the most powerful gods. Her scent is warm, like sunshine on a warm summer day. Like that's when she uses her power, that's what you think. Like that's the scent around you that it makes you feel that that's what it is.
How long have you lived in Canada?
Oof, to 20 plus, no.
Okay, long
Yeah.
enough. So people I know down here say I'm full of shit when I say this, but you can smell when it's going to snow.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so it's not just me. You can absolutely do that.
100, but you can't and the thing is because I've read a lot about this, because I actually have a very bad sense of smell, and that's why I've read so much about that scent. And you can't really put a word to it. Like some people like to say, oh, it smells like ozone, like after, like during a thunderstorm, and I'm like, that doesn't tell me anything. Like if I smell it, I can tell you, oh, I think it's going to rain, because but I can't tell you what that smell actually is.
Right, yeah. Snow is very particular though, isn't it? I mean, you just kind of go, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna snow. Yeah, we have consider how much it snows in Canada. Yeah.
Joel's giving me the stink eye, like he doesn't quite buy this.
No, I know what you mean. It just doesn't snow very often in England because it's too wet.
Yeah.
I actually lived in England for 3 years. That's why it took me a moment to figure out Canada. And honestly, I love the fact that it didn't snow there. It was nice while I was there.
You know though, having lived in England for 6 years and lived in Alaska for a few years, I don't know if I have ever been as cold as I have been. Well, no. I mean, in England. England comes in a very close second because 62 below is 62 below. But a cold, wet English winter where it just gets right down to your bones and it's just freaking miserable and you just want to dive into a pot of soup. It's freaking horrible. And at least when there's snow on the ground, it's like, oh, there's snow on the ground, I can, go do something or whatever. But when it's just wet and miserable like that, no thank you.
Try this. I lived in England, and again, families in Canada, and I was coming for the holidays beginning of December. So I was from England, decided to stop off at Iceland for 3 days instead. 3 completely different types of cold. I don't know why I did this to myself. It was horrible, but it was so different. Like you would look at, on my app, it turned out like, 1 or 2 degree difference would say on my app, but it felt completely different. And between all of them, actually Canada was the coldest one at the time. Iceland was the warmest of the 3 within a 5-6 day difference.
That's very strange.
Yeah. It's a magical time.
What's he saying here?
Oh, well, I don't have a beard, so.
Tim, I changed a tire in 40 below, so bite me.
Yeah, my brother worked on a dog sled farm in Alaska and came back with frostbite on his feet. And
oh, I bet.
And the motto, I'm not interested in hearing about how cold you are.
Right. Yeah. Oh, to this day, it starts getting cold. My fingertips go numb really quickly. It's not a contest or anything, Tim McKay, but I win.
Tim.
It totally is a contest. You know it is.
So I was going to say, I've got a novelette which is in the bottom left-hand corner, which is probably covered up mostly by my name tag and the chat. But I've got a novelette called A Many-Wing Retreat, which is set in the world of the story that I was just reading from. It goes on free on Amazon, just coincidentally, tomorrow for about 4 or 5 days. I'm using my free period. So if people want to try it, check it out. It's it's a bounty hunter and a very, very annoying talking sword. It's like a classic sword and sorcery. I was like, I just want to do, I want to do something with that. Like, I think talking swords, but because I was looking at, it's one of the big science fiction fantasy short story places. Were like, we like all sorts of fantasy except swords and sorcery. Don't send us anything with a talking sword. And I was like, I like a talking sword.
See, you say talking sword, and I immediately think of what was it, a Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck cartoon with the singing sword.
Mm.
You
I
know,
like the Brandon Sanderson
blank
one.
looks all around. Sorry.
Yeah, I like the Brandon Sanderson one that wants to defeat evil and doesn't really understand it. Like I think that's like my quintessential like sort of fantasy talking sword. But I like a talking sword, and but yeah. So I basically wrote this barbarian adventurer who's got a talking sword. It's supposed to be funny, but it's also it's also moderately violent. But but not super violent. Like,
None of us are surprised by that. We were expecting it, right?
no. I don't know. It's not like that. But yeah,
when you kill people with that sword, does the sword make that noise when it like gets into somebody, like blow bubbles and blood or anything like that? Because that would be cool.
It's really boastful. Yeah, it's really boastful, but in a way that is completely unjustified. But yeah, so I think there's at least 10 or 15 people on this chat that should definitely download that for free, and then you should leave a review for it on Amazon. And then you should also download some of Constance's books and also leave them reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, because that's what good people do.
Much appreciated.
Joel, can you put the name of the book in the chat and we'll put it up for everyone to go find? Oh, there.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to jump onto that one following with the same thing. So the same story that I read from God of Discovery, I have a novella. It's 17,000 words that I actually entered into Sphinx this year, called The Last Sunrise, and actually takes place in the same universe as my online serial, God of Discovery. However, it takes place thousands of years after the current events happening in the online serial. So it's the future version of it. I'm going to drop that in the chat as well. So that one is for free for anybody that signs up to my newsletter. So if you want, if you don't like newsletter stuff, sign up, get it, and unsubscribe. I don't mind with that. And I'll drop it in the chat here as well.
So somebody's asking what Sphinx group you are in.
The Sphinx group I'm in is the bookend. Oof. I am really bad with names. Give me 1 second, and I would bookend elves. No, the bookends.
I'm in Secret Scribes.
I'm sorry, which one?
I said I'm in Secret Scribes.
Secret Scribes. I am in the bookend elves. Nope. No. Booked Solid. That's the one.
I'm looking it up now, yeah.
I think I'm in Booked Solid. They're all book something. That's why I keep on. And I'm really, really bad with names. But yeah, that one is, I hope, but I don't have high expectations of it, because it is, as I mentioned, because it's meant to, I wrote it as a lead magnet specifically for God of Discovery. And it is quite lore heavy. Although one of the beta readers I had, which was actually really nice, she said that it's the history behind the lore, kind of the way how she described it. But yeah, it's fingers crossed, but I doubt it's going to be a winner. I just hope it gets past the first round this time, because honestly, after Soul Taming didn't make it that far, I just want one kind of win.
Cover's gorgeous, though. It's got a big butterfly on it. I love a butterfly on a cover. Big fan of that. We're team butterflies. I've got butterflies on Paths of Empire's End.
Well, the butterfly is that one actually. So I ended up doing 3 different cover designs for it, and I dropped it off into my Substack as a vote to see voters what they would prefer. So one of them was the golden butterfly. Another one was a splash, almost the same type of splatter you would have from blood, but gold. Yeah. And then the other one was that with this style. I have actually. No, I don't have. Yes, I do have it here. If you give me 1 second, I will show you exactly which drawing was on the cover, because that one I do have available. So the other one was this on the cover in gold.
Cool.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. However, voters said butterfly, and I'm like, but I love this one. Let's go. It's nice and it's flowers, But no, the voters said butterfly, and I'm like, fine.
That one had a very Grateful Dead kind of vibe to it.
Well, because it's not. I'm in the habit of not writing happily ever after endings.
No kidding. Wow.
So yeah,
I thought both of you were into that kind of thing. Sit down with a bonbon and a glass of wine and curl up with a cat and read your book and. Lock
And
all the
cry.
frickin' windows.
You can read my books with cats.
I write my books with cats. You can. That means you can definitely read them with cats.
There's a cat in my kids' books. He's called Ginger Tom.
And when does he die?
He doesn't. He
Oh,
has
okay.
he has a very happy life. He lives in the castle. He likes squid rings.
And my story, God of Discovery, starts off with cheetahs. Like, you know, so you have wild
Cheers,
cats in
cool.
it.
Yeah.
All right.
Cats are included.
We're defending ourselves here. We're defending ourselves against
I
these
feel like-
allegations.
Come on.
How many people kill like dogs or cats in their stories?
0.
Well, it wasn't a cat. It was a bobcat, and he really exceeded his life expectancy. So
No, even the cheetahs that I have at the beginning of God of Discovery, the entire thing starts with like, so after that little blurb that I read out to you, after that it starts with a chase scene where the main character is being chased by cheetahs. Even they don't get hurt. Cats do not get hurt ever.
what is the main character?
I'm sorry?
Because what is the main character? Because if he is being chased by cheetahs, he should be being eaten by cheetahs.
So the main character, Darjan, he's actually like his power is speed. He is the fastest thing in existence.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason. And the cheetahs are safe. They even survived all of that stuff I mentioned earlier, the hurricanes, the tsunamis, like they survived all of that. All the cats survived.
So my book, The 13th Prince, it may turn into the first book in the trilogy, which has like chainings backwards and forwards through various different ideas, and it's not as aggressive as Constance's 15 to 20, but like there is a rigging around the entire thing, and in the entire rigging, which is called Galaxies Fallen to Despair, there are no dogs for very specific reasons. There are no dogs and no wolves. But the thing about that is, once you've made that decision, like you can find stuff in your language and you're like, yeah, okay, I've got to take that sentence out. But that's a fun editing task where you're like, you know, there's no mongrel. Like, oh, it's a bit of a mongrel of this and that. You're like, no, it isn't. You need to find a completely different way. No dogged pursuit. You can't turn on a dog leg.
Have there never been dogs in this world? Have there never been dogs?
No dogs.
Ever?
No.
No wonder people are killing everybody. They don't have man's best friend.
No dog. Oh no, but it's all right. There's always lizards, and I like lizards and snakes. See, lizards and snakes. There's lots of lizards, lots of snakes.
There you go. You started something.
But yeah, no, very specifically for very specific like structural reasons, there are no dogs. But yeah, you find yourself, you go back and you're like, why have you named this road the Dogleg Road? And how many fucking times have you done that? You idiot. You know there are no dogs. But when you're in the flow, you're like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's going to go up this mountain. It's going to be the Dogleg Road. And then later on, you're like, Yeah.
So there's no bitch then?
No.
Okay.
No. So like, yeah, no pups. You wouldn't, you know, so you have to like, yeah, so some of those things that like just slide around. You're like, can I use
baby seals
seals?
are pups.
Yeah, the seals, so they could be pups. Can I keep that in? And then you're like, if one slipped through, that's going to be my excuse. You know. Yeah, no dogs.
All right, last chance to pitch, to show your covers, tell people where they can find whatever.
And what book you're going to accidentally write next?
Constance, go pitch.
I
can go first if you want to. I'm happy to vamp. I'll vamp. So my books are mostly available on the screen. If you click on my link tree, it has a link to every short story I've got published, every piece of poetry, every piece of criticism, and most of those were written accidentally, and the books. Path, thanks, dudes. Path of Pain and Ruin is brutal and violent and visceral, but it's also supposed to be like Mistborn. So if that's your vibe, grab that. A Many-Wing Retreat is free, so if that's your vibe, because whose vibe isn't free, grab that. And the 13th Prince, as I say, it's dark fantasy, smashes into The Big Short. So if you want intrigue and politics and adventure, and a subversion of the Chosen One myth, then that's a great place to start. And if you've got 4 to 8 year olds, the
Hide them.
Yeah, hide them from those books, definitely. Like when friends and colleagues are like, oh, I'm going to read my book with your kids. Your book with my kids. I'm like, no, you're not. Not if you want to keep them. But yeah, get the kids' books. They're all available on Kindle Unlimited. They're funny. There's 3 of them available on Audible. They're available in paperback. If you ask me nicely via email or on Twitter, I will even send you redemption links. I've got a handful of redemption links left for the Audibles for free. So if you want my dulcet tones in your children's ears, then you may have that.
All right. Thank you.
Constance?
Okay, I'm just gonna drop a different link for you, but so I have a link tree thingy as well, but I write science fiction and fantasy. I like to play around with subverting tropes, and at the moment, so I have The Last Sunrise, which is available on my Last Sunrise. I had it called Last Sunset before, so sorry if I made that slip. But I don't know if you know, Laura had her story, The Sunset Sovereign, and we kept on getting confused who was Sunset, so that's why I changed mine to Sunrise. But yeah, I have Last Sunrise, which is a novella available on my Substack to read for free once you sign up for the newsletter. It is, as I mentioned, a fantasy story set in the world of God of Discovery, and it is about a courtesan who wants to be remembered in history forever. I also have God of Discovery itself, the online serial, 300,000+ words, currently available on Royal Road, Substack, Yoru, and Wattpad. That was the other one. It is a slow update. It is currently on break, but I am planning on finishing that off. In addition, I have the 2 that I actually gave to Mike beforehand, which are So Taming the Serpent, a queer love story, romantasy with older protagonist about a trio looking for a dragon, because dragons are basically the only way how people get rain, and there hasn't been one for a while, so their job is to go find the dragon. And then I have The Starcatcher, which is about, as I mentioned, the deformed Stella, a space mermaid who all she wants to do is catch stars. All of those you can find on the link tree. The Starcatcher is a short story. It is available on KU. So Taming has actually a different cover between the ebook and the print book. The print book cover is actually my own design, and the print version has 2 additional drawings inside it, only for the print version, and the other ones are free, so that's fine.
And Constance, do you do artwork for other people, or do you also do that?
Yes, so I actually work as a book designer. That is I've been freelance for over 10 years now. I do formatting, covers, map. I love designing maps. I have gotten into character art as well for other people, but it's not as much because I know with characters it's much pickier in regards to it. But yeah, I love working on maps. That's basically how I make my bread and butter. So
okay.
Yeah.
And they can find that on your link tree?
Yes. Actually, is it? Yes, it is.
Your link tree has something called Other Author Resources, like spreadsheets, with an exclamation point.
Yes.
How is that exciting?
I love spreadsheets. I'm sorry. I just literally I light up when we talk about that. Is literally my favorite procrastination method. Like when I'm stuck on writing, I will create a spreadsheet. Like I have one of the most detailed, I have a monthly word tracker. That's specifically, I have every tab is a different month, and at the end, it keeps track of all of my words for the year. I have a structure map is what it's called, where I, based off of how many words I want something to be, based off of what basic plot structure I'm using and how many scenes it'll be, basically I can fill it out and everything. That one is not available for everybody yet, if I remember correctly, because I'm currently editing it. I have a way how to keep track of, especially because I know with indie authors, we have a very hard time promoting our stuff. But yes, as Laura said, they are basically when I'm stressed out and when I'm stuck, that's what I start doing. But I have a way how to keep track of however many promos you're part of. and when it starts, when it ends, how many sales you get from it, and everything. And all of it is available. Basically, anybody can grab it and use it. Yeah, they're fun.
Okay.
Sorry, I get very excited when I talk about spreadsheets.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have none, Mike. Not one.
Spreadsheets are important.
They are amazing. They're such a good way to keep track of like everything, in my opinion. Like I keep track of stories. I keep track of like when I say stories, I mean like the plot beats within a story. I keep track of editing times. I keep track of bunnies like that pop out of nowhere. The promo stuff that I mentioned, like everything is on there. And I've been working on a really, really big one, which that one I won't be available for anybody for a while, which is basically like self-publishing spreadsheet where it's like, did you get your ISBN? Did you get your, this is what goes in your front matter. This is what you would, not what goes, what suggestions. Everything is suggestions. What can go in your back matter, where to publish, where to do this, like, everything for indies. Because again, I get obsessed with them. Sorry.
Oh my goodness!
That's good.
I want that when you're finished. I want a copy.
Deal.
Awesome. Okay. Ro just does not understand spreadsheets.
No, I'm just picturing you getting this in your email and turning off all the lights and closing the curtains in your house and just, getting all excited about spreadsheets, man.
No, they're nice.
Okay, so I think we've exhausted our conversation. Any more, and there's going to be more murders and another story written by Joel. So I think it's time to wave awkwardly. And
hey, thanks everybody for coming.